Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right, welcome everybody out tonight to North Ogden City Planning Commission meeting, February 17th, 2021. I'm Chairman Thomas and will be conducting the meeting tonight. We'll begin our meeting with an invocation or a thought given to us by Commissioner Vice Chairman Mason, followed which I'll lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Thank you. I'll proceed with that now. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful this day for the many blessings we have. We're grateful to gather together as a planning commission for the betterment of North Ogden City. We ask for thy wisdom and guidance and the decisions that we make. Please help us to understand the many points of view that affect these decisions and help us to understand one another as well as those we represent. Please bless the world at this time to recover from the pandemic, both physically, medically, and economically. And we ask these favors and blessings in thy holy name, in the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
Amen. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you, Vice Chairman Mason. We will make note that all commissioners are in attendance tonight. We want to make a special note and welcome Commissioner Webb to our meeting tonight. First meeting in attendance of many, so we're excited to have you here.
Thank you.
All right, minute consideration and action to approve the February 3rd, 2021 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Is there any discussion or items on that?
After review of those, I would propose we approve those minutes.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for the minutes. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, well, I'll now read our opening meeting statement. For this meeting is being held via Zoom. So before each agenda item begins, the city staff will give a report. After the staff report, the item will be opened for other speakers. The applicant will speak first and be allowed up to 10 minutes. Following the applicant, any other interested person will be allowed to speak for up to 3 minutes. The applicant has final rebuttal time of up to 5 minutes. Any materials that are displayed or referenced, e.g. pictures or written materials, are part of the record and must be forwarded to the commission. Speakers are required to have registered their full name on Zoom and will state their name and address before beginning their remarks. If you agree with a previous speaker, then state your agreement to avoid repetitious remarks. Speakers shall address all comments to the Planning Commission. Please silence your microphones or remain on mute until ready to speak. All right.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I would propose that we take a minute at the onset of the meeting just to get to know our new commissioner briefly. Could he take a second and introduce himself?
You bet.
I don't have anything prepared, but my name's Johnson Webb. I was born on 2nd Street or Katy Hospital in Ogden. I went to Green Acres Elementary, graduated from Weber High in 1992, moved away for 20 years and have been back in North Ogden for a little over 5 years. I've got kids that have attended school in the area, and right now at home I've got a 3-year-old and an 18-month-old, and I am married to Kelly Webb, formerly Kelly. So that's me.
And you graduated from the best graduating class that's ever gone through Weber High, might I add?
I'll second that.
Absolutely. We didn't beat him in the field, we beat him in the parking lot.
That's right. So said Earl Henninger as he gave a cake to the parking lot crew.
There you go. All right, well, welcome again.
Thank you.
Commissioners, is there any ex parte communications? Actually, we don't really have any voting items, but any ex parte communications or conflicts of interest tonight? All right, well, item number 5, we'll take time to go ahead and open the meeting for public comments for any remarks for anything that is not on the agenda. If you'd like to address us, please raise your hand or type in the chat. And we'd love to hear from you. So we'll open the meeting for public comment at this time.
I don't see any hands tonight.
Okay. Well, we'll begin tonight. We have no administrative items, just these 3 legislative items. So just as a reminder, legislative items are recommendations from the Planning Commission to the City Council, and the City Council has the vote on legislative items. Item number 6, Zone Text Amendment 2018-10, discussion regarding amending the city code to establish streetscape standards for Monroe Boulevard, Mountain Road, and 2600 North, 475 East to Mountain Road. Our presenter is Kai Johnson. Kai?
Good evening, Chair and Commission. Lynn, can I take over, please?
Yep. Just let me stop that one. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Lynn. Okay, so as Commissioner Thomas mentioned, this is a legislative item. Really what I'm hoping to get out of this final discussion, I don't know if we're going to get into 2600 too much, but I did want to polish up my recommendation to pass along for Monroe, as well as kind of introduce Mountain Road. Mountain Road is different in regards to from Monroe in regards that we don't have the right of way and the alignment is not exact, as well as we don't have a design in place. With Monroe, there was already a rough design in place. So with Mountain Road, there isn't. So there's a lot more discretion and there's some different issues that need to be discussed. So the first question I have is in regards to Monroe. You guys in our last meeting did show some favor for bulb outs. I was hoping to take a quick poll and see what your guys' if you have to say on a scale of 1 to 5, what would you say, how much do you support bulb outs, or because it's going to take more research is what I've decided as I've looked into it a little bit more. And before I do all that work and research, I want to make sure it's something that we want to stand behind our recommendation to the City Council.
Can you give us a quick definition or picture, graphic, something of that? Again?
Yeah, so the bulb outs, again, the design it gets tricky because there's a lot to consider in regards to engineering and fire. There's a few places in the city, I think trying something like this may be appropriate, or even just paint. Specifically along like 1050 East or 150 East, excuse me. Something like that, this may be suitable to collect some data for one, to see if they're effective, as well as to see what the fire trucks, what as far as they will be able to work with, right? That's kind of where I am with bulb outs. And the point with this doing this way is it's scalable, right? These are temporary and we can collect data. And so I think if we were to identify a few places where speeding is an issue currently that fits the context of Monroe, we can get some good data points that would confirm or push us away from bulb outs, I guess.
When you do that, I'd like to see several different ways of controlling the speed. The traffic's going to be big regardless. There's going to be a lot of traffic on there. The speed's going to be a big issue because it's downhill, 1050 East, trying to come down 1050 East without gearing down and riding your brakes is tough. Mm-hmm. So I'd like to see several different ways we could look at for controlling the speed. I don't think these speed bumps are good, but some other issues, other ways of doing it. and this would be one of them.
Okay.
Do you get a feel for, I mean, how long these things last? It seems like it's just inviting teenagers to make lawn art on someone's, like on their teacher's front lawn or something, right?
Right, and that's why I'm thinking paint may be a more temporary option, or even traffic cones. I don't know. This is something, again, I've thought about it and I've looked into it, but doing cross sections is one thing, but doing the top down drawings and renderings takes a lot more time. And I don't want to get too far into that without a strong recommendation.
You know, you had some other diagrams there that it wasn't really a roundabout type thing. It was things in the intersection. You had to go, yeah, right there, that
Right here.
diagram.
Okay.
I've seen them before. I think they use them down in Ogden on the west side of the temple. I'm not sure how they work. Have you ever seen any data on those?
I haven't. I will look into that question though. As far as the effectiveness of class.
Are those temporary? Can they be moved?
I believe they.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was going to say they look like they're somewhere in between temporary and a permanent fixture.
That almost look like they're rubberized.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't be a fan of something like that in the middle of an intersection, but as far as a bulb out, if we were to, when we come to the stop sign and have that come out maybe 5 or 6 feet, for the parking lane, that you eliminate, that last 30 feet up to the intersection of parking and make that a widened park strip that kind of bulbs into on the streets that way. I think that can be a benefit, but as far as mid block or bulbs out in the middle to trying to calm things down, I don't know that I'm a fan of those items, but we have a very, it's very difficult. I know last week the city council was discussing, making 2600 and 1050 a 4-way intersection, because of safety and worried about, people running the stop sign. And, that's very difficult to figure because, you make that into a 4-way stop and it just makes the traffic that much worse. Everybody coming on 2600 to turn up 1050. Now every car has to stop rather than, go when there's no oncoming traffic. But, so we got to figure out how to balance, the roads you're talking about are our plan to be our main traffic, providers for the city. And so what's something that can still accomplish that goal, accomplish the safety, the aesthetics that we want to improve to make it look nicer, but then also have some kind of calming effect, but still be able to maintain a flow of traffic. This picture you have here to me seems like it's pretty congested and obviously wouldn't work for snow conditions. But
for the temporary and gathering data, do you plan on setting up a camera to try to, and then watch it time lapse or something like that and be able to slow it down and look, that would catch vandals as well if there's a problem.
It would. I would be more interested in speed. I would be interested to see if people slow down for these things would be the big takeaway, I think.
Okay.
Okay.
I'd say that I agree with Eric, though. I think when we talked about this last time, we talked about more just doing it at the intersections where the park strip is eliminated or the park lane. But
yeah, that's what I was going to mention too. Is the idea behind the bulb out just to slow traffic, or is it also to protect sort of a parking lane? Do we anticipate that there's going to be long stretches of, say, Monroe Boulevard that has a parking lane along the road?
There will be parking along most all of Monroe, and this would serve to protect that, as well as it shortens up the distance that pedestrians would need to cross the intersection, as well as they can be used they're called bioswales, stormwater management, things along those lines. Okay, so I think that kind of answers that question.
Kai, I'm sorry, I got to go back here. I'm kind of unsure what you're asking. Are you asking us what our vision for the design of the road is, or how we should collect data to be informed on the design of the road? Like, what are we asking here?
I'm looking to formulate my recommendation to pass along to City Council. If I'm going to pass along a recommendation for bulb outs, it's going to take significantly more research and some more work. And that's why before I do all that work, I want to make sure that that's something you guys are interested in passing along as a recommendation to explore.
But your recommendation to them will be for permanent structures that are shaped like this, right? I mean, we're obviously not talking about.
We're not going to use silt dams and planter. No.
Okay.
I don't have any permanent examples of permanent bulb outs in front of me right this moment. It's my recommendation is something we need to explore because of the number of details that are associated with it.
Kai, just sorry to interrupt you, but I do have some that I can send you some photos of. We can send out to the commission of permanent bulb outs that are in some neighborhoods I know.
Oh, that'd be great. Thank you, Brandon. Okay, so I want to kind of shift gears over to Mountain Road. And to do that, I'm even less in the weeds, or more in the weeds on this one than I am with Monroe. The issue, all right, this aggravates me. Mountain Road essentially can be thought of as two roads. And it kind of, the shift starts to happen right at 2650. Right here. So you'll notice here that, oh, I went too far. There is a stop sign. Now this stop sign has been removed, okay? So this kind of comes back to induced demand. We started prioritizing traffic along this road, and kind of the road north of this is an entirely different road than the road south of this. Let me just kind of bounce back to the city boundary here, and I'll talk about some things as we go. So here, most of the road is going to be similarly developed going north with these wide fronted lots, 80 to 90 feet, 100 feet plus even in some places. And as we get down here, this won't be an 80-foot right of way as most of Mountain Road will be in the sections that are incomplete and missing, okay? This road is very narrow, and the design speed there's a great disparity between design speed and speed limit. People go very fast. Kind of as I inventoried this road and the walking infrastructure, that's one thing I noticed, is that the speed is an issue. People go much faster than that. So this gets into more of the areas where it gets different. Again, we have these lots that are 100 feet plus along the road, wide open, okay? Now, north of that area, in some of the sections that have been completed, you can really see what an 80-foot right-of-way looks like. There's no striping along this right-of-way, okay? So the alignment of this road is going to connect from up here on 4300 along here. So along here, it's called the long bench. Most of this is going to be lots fronting onto Mountain Road here. And there is a trail, okay? So those are some issues that we need to address in our design of the streetscape. One thing we had talked about between staff is we were thinking that putting the bike lanes and the trail on the north side of the road is going to be the best option, because that will provide more sunshine throughout the winter days that will melt the snow off faster. And so it just so happens that from Monroe, I did an 80-foot right-of-way drawing with that would fit that criteria. So this is kind of what I was hoping to start as using as a baseline for Mountain Road, with the 11-foot travel lanes and the bike lanes that would end up on the north side of the road all the way around the mountain. Kind of, okay. Up along, yeah. So you'd have your bike lanes and essentially you'd be all along on this outside edge here. Any thoughts or feedback in that regard?
You're just saying that 2 bike lanes on one side of the road, 2 travel lanes and a turn lane.
That's kind of the direction that I was thinking, because that would accomplish that goal of utilizing that passive solar design.
Hi, this is Lauren. I have a question. The 2 bike lanes in opposite directions, are those going to be separated at all by a curb or anything?
They can be. Delineators is an option, or even curbing is an option. There's lots of directions I can take it from here. This is kind of what I was hoping to start as use as a foundation to work from.
And so on the bike lane side, there will be no parking?
Right. Well, there's not the right of way for it in that regard. Is that something we want to prioritize?
Well, we are going to have homes fronting along that entire section. So it's something to be considered.
Okay.
My thoughts on this is, of all the roads in North Ogden, this is like top 2 going to be most used for biking, right? Like, when I hear about bike lanes up Washington, even though that's our busiest road, it's probably not your most likely bike. I mean, who wants to bike straight up Washington? Certainly not this fat guy, right? So I guess with e-bikes, maybe that changes things, but Mountain Road and the way this thing, the grade of it, this is going to be your heavy bike thing. So I think we really need to get this right. And I remember in a previous meeting, Commissioner, I preferred the design of having the 2 bike lanes on one side, and I was alone. You guys remember that? Because more experienced bikers were saying that's a terrible idea. That was Commissioner Waite who said when bikers are coming on like this, it's actually a really terrible thing. So just to represent that point of view, I don't know if we're going the right way here.
Yeah, I agree. I would want the bike lanes separate. I'm not as concerned about, the snow meltings by keeping it all on one side of the road. People are going to want to ride with traffic on their bike. Half the time they ride out in the travel lane, not the bike lane itself. So I think we need to make sure the bike lanes stay on the same side as the traffic that they're intended to go. So, that upper example of option A with bike lanes on both sides, plus also providing parking on each side of the road, which is very important.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I agree with that as well. It would seem odd and sort of dangerous to be driving in that to be biking in that outside lane against traffic. It would seem odd.
Okay.
But admittedly, I don't do a lot of biking on the road. So, maybe people that do that all the time would have a different feeling about it.
No, but you drive a car, and do you want to have oncoming bikes in right next to your lane you're driving in? Like I wouldn't want that either, from that standpoint. I mean, in theory, if they're both on that same side, on the travel lane, let's say you're heading eastbound, well, I guess it would be westbound traffic because that's the north side of the road. You're heading westbound, and then you have a bike coming at you, right next to you or whatever. So because the bike is going to, if they're together, the bike, you know, you're, whatever one's closest to the lane of traffic is going to be the opposite direction. So of traffic. And so that, to me, that's just a safety issue that I don't even want to explore. Again, people not staying in the bike lane, or there's cars parked there and they got to go out and around a car. You're going into oncoming traffic lane, not a lane that's traveling with you.
Yeah, you know, the other thing is, I mean, I guess if you are familiar with the stretch of road and you travel it all the time, you would get used to it. But, you know, if you're up there at night, it's pretty dark and you're not expecting a bike to be there, it just seems like it might be sort of dangerous.
Are we in agreement this is going to be our crown jewel of bike paths? I really think it will be, right? And Mountain Road is like, I mean, to bike around this valley, I think people are going to be using Mountain Road. This is going to be a real nice thing for the biking community.
Yeah, the road will probably be done about the time bikes are non-existent and you got hoverboards or whatever. But yeah, in theory, yes. You can ride your little personalized helicopter right above the road all the way around the valley.
Yeah, or it'll be a hoverboard instead of a
Yeah.
bike.
I wish that were true, but at the rate of development in the town, it's probably going to be sooner than we think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I know someone who's developing some property right along there.
Mhm. And I'm intentionally not doing Mountain Road. Not for any other really reason. That's just, we're not to that point. But yeah, I mean, really from essentially, is it like White Rock subdivision, just below the divide, from there all the way over into Pleasant View. You know, Pleasant View is in the process of bidding out and awarding the Skyline Drive, which is their extension of Mountain Road, all the way to back down to 89, you know. And so in theory, over the next 10 years, that may be complete from the divide all the way to 89. Now, the rest of it is a rebuild project through North Ogden, you know, where it already exists. But to revitalize that, widen it out and make it like what this design is, I could really see that really being a heavily used bike path, because the grade is sufficient, you know, whether it's downhill or uphill, it's not too severe. So
Well, it's a nice parallel add to the canal road. It also gets people onto the mountain biking trails and just helps even kids travel through the community safely. With regard to the weather piece, people aren't biking a lot when there's snow on the ground. So I think that's also another add for a bike lane on both sides of the road rather than just on the north side.
All right, I think that gives me enough information to get some cross sections drawn up for that. That's all I have for commissioners.
Hey, Kai, I have one more question. So you had mentioned, you know, the lower piece below like 2650. Currently, I think it's a 35-mile-an-hour speed limit along there. Is that what we anticipate it being the whole way once it's developed?
From my recollection, it was 30, and I think that's what is slated for the rest of the road.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Kai,
I think it will be very well-traveled road up there.
Kai, this is Lauren. I have another question. Tiffany was concerned about having a trail all parallel with Mountain Road. So you've talked a lot about the bike lanes, but not much about the path for the trail.
Oh, thank you for bringing that up, Lauren. Yes, there will be a trail. Essentially, I don't know if this is what Tiffany wanted or desires, but essentially that's going to translate to a 6-foot sidewalk on one side of the street, which will fit with this, because this will end up being a 6-foot sidewalk. Do we want to put the 6-foot sidewalk on the north side so we do get the benefit of the extra sunshine and that less to clear, that is to say, on that side of the road?
I was just up there in the cove today with 7-foot snowbanks. It'll be a while before the sun clears that's the snow on those sidewalks. But yeah, I would say just one side, whatever probably more so looking at what roads connect to it. The least connected side, if there is such a thing, would make sense probably for a trail, the wider sidewalk. But
Kai, real quick, you're discussing Mountain Road, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Just before we get far along on this discussion, and meetings that we've had with Tiffany recently, she's stated that she specifically wants a dedicated trail and not a 6-foot sidewalk. I don't know what is needed in regards to, I'm assuming she means an asphalt trail as opposed to a 6-foot sidewalk. So I thought that was clear. So I'm sorry if I didn't pass that along to you.
Yeah, we kind of talked about that, and that may be appropriate for the other portion of Mountain Road. I'm not sure how appropriate it is going to have that in front of people's homes. That was kind of the interesting, or the kind of the issue with that one.
Well, that's the statement that she gave me, so I'm just passing it along.
I think that should be explored, because I do think it's possible. I've been in communities down in Houston, for example, that have things like that going on. I know we have that trail parallel to Pleasant View Drive, and it does not front homes. It fronts a golf course, right? But I think you could imagine homes there just as easy. I think that should be explored at least.
But that trail is intended for walkers and bikers and everything, right?
Correct.
Like if we're making a big wide road with 2 bike lanes, a trail alongside it, do we want that big of a trail for walking as well? Or do we want to scrap the bike lanes and make a 10-foot wide asphalt trail on the side outside of the road and have it for biking and for walking?
Yeah. Remember, my stance on this, you guys, has always been we're planning for the future. And when I look at the rise of just e-bikes and what are they called, the little things that the kids can just stand on, and hoverboards, and all sorts of stuff, I really see the future involving a lot of people moving around in those things. And those kind of things right now, they don't really fit in a bike lane. They don't really fit on a sidewalk because it's kind of too narrow. So I'd love to see something like we have along Pleasant View Drive that would accommodate, your hoverboard and your segways and stuff like that.
I was just thinking, you go up into Ogden Valley and they have the bike lanes / walking lanes, where you want to call them, all along there. There are people walk through there, but most of the bicyclists are out in the road. Even though there's not a bike lane out there, most of them are out in the road. They don't even bother with that biking lane.
Well, it's a speed thing, right? Like if a bicyclist can ride at 3 times the speed of a walker or a hoverboard, then they belong in a different place.
Well, they don't run into much competition up there between the two in Ogden Valley. And I've been up there driving it. There's not much conflict between them. It's just the bicyclists prefer to be out on the road.
Well, we've got an 80-foot right of way. If we want to dedicate a section of trail, then we're eliminating park strip and sidewalk, to accommodate that. So that's really probably what would need to be discussed is, if we like this road section, we want the bike lanes in the road, then, essentially we got 9 feet on either side of the road behind curb to accommodate sidewalk, walking trail, park strip. And so,
I'm thinking if there is an 8 or 10-foot paved trail all the way along there, I'm not sure we need a bike lane. I know Commissioner Thomas and Commissioner Barker, we're talking about, well, maybe, bicycles would actually prefer to be in the street, even if there's a trail, but I'm not so sure about that.
It probably relates to speed. Like if you're climbing up the hill on Mountain Road, going from, let's say, from the divide up to where it'll peak out at the top above Washington Boulevard, you probably on the trail would be okay because you're going pretty slow. But if you're going the other direction, you probably go close to the same speed as cars. You probably wouldn't want to be on a trail because it would feel small.
Right.
But again, that's.
If
just comment on this. When you're on a bike, even if you're coming up on like maybe only one person and walking their dog, or someone with a dog in a stroller, or just a person in a stroller, or two people, it's really, what do you, like, you slow way down, because what if that person, all at once, maybe they're on the right side and you're thinking, okay, I'll pass on the left. So I pass on the left, but then that can even scare them and make them do something and jump in front of you. Or it's a really uncomfortable situation to have a bike with walking or jogging people, because you're coming up from behind and it's completely unpredictable on a certain level. So, and that, a collision is a collision, or potentially. And so I don't like to ever bike where, I'll bike on an open road. Like, I don't bike in places like this just because of that. But where you feel like you can't just go way around somebody, you don't have to warn them or anything like that. So there's like no potential, collision, I guess. So.
Yeah, that's a really good point. That's maybe what Commissioner Barker was referring to too, why they would prefer to ride in the road. I hadn't thought about that.
Well,
and you don't want to be near cars that are, people texting and they're not paying attention. So I don't know. Bikers are kind of up for grabs in a lot of ways, depending on where you
I
bike.
drive around North Ogden and watch people go out by my house, people walking, very few of them are walking on the sidewalk. Most of them are walking out on the street. Sometimes I've had to actually stop my truck because they wouldn't get out of the road and they're just walking.
That's a product, I think, of us having
why the heck
sidewalks
would
that
you have
are too narrow. I don't think that's the fact that people want to be in the street. It's that they, as a tandem, two people can't comfortably walk down a 4-foot sidewalk.
I seen one person at a time out in the middle of the street. I had to stop for them.
That's I believe you, I guess, but I still think it's a if we build it, they will come kind of a thing. In my opinion,
we still need to provide for it regardless.
Right, and in my opinion, a 6-foot wide sidewalk, people will be walking along that more often than if it's a 4-foot. And I there's always going to be exceptions.
I agree.
So, commissioners, if I could share a couple thoughts with you. As far as the biking community is concerned, there's the recreational bicyclist that has a tendency to want to be a little bit more go slower and what have you. The commuter bicyclists, they like to be on streets because they do go a lot faster. I like the idea that you're coming up with several different alternatives that we can investigate. I think the idea of eliminating a sidewalk on one side, making a wide trail that would accommodate both pedestrians and bicyclists for recreation, I think both of those ought to be explored, and we ought to take a hard look at that. The other thing that I think we should take a hard look at is if any of you have been in Ogden City and driven along what's called Skyline Drive, which goes between Highway 89 and goes to the Stewart Stadium and that, they have a planted median in that roadway. And it has made a huge difference in just the whole feel of that roadway. So I'm going to work with Kai and give you some pictures of that so that we'll have something that is not only a functional road, but one in which it is going to lend itself to a really nice neighborhood feel. So I appreciate your comments, and I think we've got some good options that we can put a little more time into and share them with you at a later time.
I don't know what our time frame is, but that seems like something that would be worthy of a field trip possibly, or at least maybe go on your own field trip.
I would, I'll work with, we'll work with Kai, and as soon as we can have a little less snow, maybe our chair will allow us to jump in his bus and go for a ride.
One last time, Rob, one last time.
Hey, Rob, I mean, maybe that's something I'd like to take a look at it in the snow as well. I think I'm gonna take some time and drive up there and look at how it is. And I think they have a couple races up there, like road races up that I think, so I think I've seen it in the snow, but I think I'm gonna go take a look at it from a development standpoint. So I guess I encourage anyone interested to do the same.
Great idea.
Okay, you got what you need there, Kai?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All right, well, let's move on to item number 7. Zone Text Amendment 2020-7. A presentation regarding site triangle amendments concerning how trail intersects with roadways. Presenter is Lauren Gardner, our city engineer. Lauren?
Yes, thank you, Chair and Commission. I'm really going to present this this topic really to inform you a little bit about what happened at the City Council meeting, as Chair Thomas referred to earlier. We talked about issues regarding traffic and site concerns at the intersection of 1050 and 2600. And in there, we talked about alternatives to that intersection. One, there's some site visibility issues with the trees and bushes. We're going to try to improve that to help cut down on some of those visibility issues. But also, the council has asked us to do a warrant study to see whether four-way stop is warranted, whether a traffic signal is warranted. We looked at an alternative to a traffic signal as a possible roundabout area. And so those will come out of the warrant study that we're going to do to help improve that circulation and increase the safety at that intersection. In that process, the council, I showed the council the site triangles. Can I share my screen now, Lynn?
Yes.
Okay. So this is that same intersection, and the small little red triangles that I have on these two corners are the 40-foot triangles based on our current ordinance. Now, I've talked with you about site triangles before, and the council actually liked my proposal of amending the ordinance to include these dual 30 by 100 foot site triangles at each intersection or each corner to replace our 40-foot site triangles. And let me just show you. And these are drawn pretty well to scale, so you can see where the 40-foot is currently, and then these are the two 30 by 100-foot triangles.
Sorry to cut you off, but before you jump off that slide, I just like the public record to show that if the homeowner on the southeast corner of that intersection were ever interested in selling that travel trailer, I would be interested. Thank you.
All right.
It's part of the problem of the triangle, you know that. Actually, no, before you go on, that had the land on the northeast corner. I know of a lot of people who've complained about that corner over the years and nothing's been done. And nobody can figure out why. My daughter alone has called at least 4 times on that. And nothing's ever been done, nobody can figure out why. The southeast corner, southwest corner, that's going to be another issue because you're going to be cutting out trees from the park. How you're going to handle that, I don't know.
Yeah. So let me continue. Our 40-foot site triangle is based on or is measured along the property lines, where our new site triangles, these 30 by 100, are actually measured along the curb lines, or where no curb exists, it will just be to the edge of the pavement. So here is just sort of another
So the white
represent.
was the new site triangle and the red was the old, correct?
The red was the old and the white is the new. And these are just a couple typical intersections. And it shows we have a 30-foot section here by 100-foot. So the council has directed us to prepare a modification to the ordinance that deals with these site triangles. So I am meeting with the police chief and our city administrator, and we're going to be working on those amendments. I did a little search on our code to see how many sections had some discussion about site triangles, and there's probably at least a half a dozen different sections, a lot of them dealing with fence heights and visibility at intersections. In there, we will also address a smaller site triangle as we come out of driveways. Because currently, let me show you this one, I think, yeah. This is in our fence height ordinance, and it shows the 40-foot intersection here, but it also has a 10 by 10 triangle at driveways. And we'll probably have a very similar one where a trail intersects the road. It will be a smaller triangle or something very similar that will be part of the ordinance also. So I do not have.
Lauren?
Yes, sir.
In that example that you had, right? Well, the first one with the nice trailer that's not for sale.
Let me get back to it.
I'm curious, and we probably discussed this at the time, but so I'm curious if there was, so obviously the new site triangle takes away linear feet from the homeowner, right? Like, and says, hey, you can't put stuff here, right? But
Well,
I'm wondering if it increases the amount of square footage. So I wonder if you had any.
It does increase the square footage within those triangles, but the majority of those site triangle portions are not on private property. Most of them are in our park strips and our sidewalk.
So okay, so it kind of gives the private property square footage back to the homeowner.
Yes,
Into
and
his front yard. Yeah.
in the 40-foot, let me find that section again. Well, let's see, site triangles. Okay. In the 40-foot site triangle, there's actually a large section behind my white triangles that really is not an interference for us, but we have considered it as a site visibility issue. And so that whole section basically will be given back to the property owner. And so only these small little sections right here behind this red line is what we'll be dealing with on private property. Does that make sense, Brandon?
Yeah, yeah. So but the overall square footage is of the white area is bigger than the red area, right?
Yes, but the amount.
But it's more unusable ground, really.
Yeah.
Okay.
A few issues that we're going to address in the ordinance also, besides the height of bushes or interference, is what can and can't go in there. Like the gang mailboxes, utility big cabinets, trees of certain size and dimension. We're going to try to restrict that so we have a clear visibility area over that entire white area. Also, cars will not be able to park along those areas to block some of the visibility. Looks like our mayor has a hand up.
He
You
does.
done, Lauren? Mayor, you'd like to address us on that?
If that's okay, Mr. Chairman, just
Yeah.
wanted to give an update. We met with the police chief in regards to enforcement of this potential ordinance. He has some major concerns about enforcement and some of the things that are already present in the site triangles. Things the city council hadn't thought about, so we'll probably be readdressing this issue prior to turning Lauren loose on an ordinance. Just wanted to update you on that. And we're trying to take a phased approach to providing safety here. And I think this was the first thing, Lauren, we wanted to try to do is to have some site triangle that works. But I just wanted to update the commission and Lauren on you. We probably didn't communicate that, but the chief brought up some real issues on being able to do this. So we need to get with you before probably spend too much time
Sure.
moving forward on this.
We're actually meeting with the chief tomorrow to talk
Yeah,
about the site triangles. So
Yeah, he brought up some good points in regards to the ability to enforce it, et cetera.
Okay.
all right, any other questions that the commission has regarding this? Otherwise, we're going to move forward, ultimately getting that ordinance to take it to the city council.
Lauren, I just had one question, and I'm sure it was discussed quite in detail, but in the old triangle, the 40-foot triangle, the part that does not overlay with the white triangles, like in the middle,
Yes.
that provided a lot of visibility through there. From a safety standpoint, is the discussion that that's determined not to be needed, all of that visibility?
That is correct. If someone planted or a large hedge in that area, it would be in violation of our ordinance. But in reality, in doing the studies and checking the speeds and the widths of the road, we didn't need all that area for visibility. So,
Okay.
You
Great,
know,
thanks.
Lauren, living there, I find one of the biggest issues that the visibility on the northeast corner is really poor. And the visibility on the southwest corner is really poor. Otherwise, there's visibility is not an issue right there. And the stop sign, I don't know how they missed that stop sign. It's flashing away. You have to be asleep to miss it. Of course, somebody hit that stop sign the other day. And so visibility is not an issue except for those two corners.
correct. I think that's what we've determined where our visibility issues are. So,
And that's where I find the biggest problem is when people come down to there, it's seen around those corners are pretty tough. And then I've watched police run that stop sign. I've run all, it's really, I say when people sit there and sit there and sit there and sit there and never go through and there's no cars around.
yeah.
It's a weird place. But if you put a four-way stop on there, you're going to be in for a nightmare on traffic in the morning and night, up 2600, down 2600. If you put a stoplight in there, you're going to run into the same problem.
Yeah, Scott, we're not really considering some of those things heavily right now. We're trying to see if Lauren's recommendation would solve the problem.
I hope it does, because those are two things I see right there, that visibility on those two sides of the street.
Yeah, that's our intention, to try this first, and then if we have to transition to other things, we'll take a look at it. But our hope is this can solve the problem.
And to send people back to driver's school.
Well, as the chief would tell you, that most accidents are caused by poor driving and inattention. It's not necessarily the issue there. So, but we're doing all we can within our means to try to make it as safe as we possibly can.
It's a tough corner. Thanks, Mayor.
Once again, though, I think Brandon has a point. I think it's that travel trailer that people are envious of, and they look at it and forget about the stop sign.
But that's not one to be, an 18-foot one be envious of? I don't think so.
You haven't seen my driveway. It's the right
Oh.
size.
I mean, I think that's the problem, Scott. That trailer.
That's a poor man's trailer.
Well, maybe that's why Mason wants it. The poor
No, it's a
man's
good
trailer.
It's a real good trailer. It serves real well, I'll tell you. It does a good job for what we do need.
Okay, well, let's put a pin in this item, I guess, until Lauren gets a chance to meet with the chief, and they'll kind of bring back what the final ordinance is. We've had a couple of questions and comments on our previous item. So before we roll to the last item, since it's still a little bit fresh in our mind, let's swing back to Kai on Monroe. We didn't talk about what as far as the streetscapes on these main roads, what we'd like to see with trees and vegetation. We kind of focused on the travel lanes, but Kai, was there a question on that?
I brought that up, Eric, and I just wanted to, I remember when we discussed it earlier that we discussed a more of a tree-lined road. We were more, at least I thought, we were more in favor of that just because the lack of commercial that's going to exist on Monroe, since it's
Yeah, right. That's
so
right.
I wanted to
We
make sure
did
that
talk
Kai had
about
that when he puts that together. I give anyone else a chance to rebut that statement, but
No, Brandon, we did talk about a tree-lined road, but give a list of trees that be picked from, not tell them you will plant this kind of tree, but a list of trees that work in a park strip to be allowed for by the city.
and I mean, there's obviously much more to a road than just the width and stuff, right? Like, as I've learned since I've been on the planning commission, there's lighting and there's, all sorts of vegetation and stuff. I don't have specific input on anything there, but somebody else may. And I just wanted to give you guys a moment to give input on that. Obviously, if it's lighting, I favor, it is going to be one of the main entry points to our city. And so I'd be in favor of something like is going on along Washington, if not the same, with the kind of black lights that are kind of fancy looking. I don't even know what you call those. Look like candy canes. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that could look great. It creates some continuity, and kind of draw people over onto that road a little bit. I think maybe take some pressure off Washington, both for a number of reasons.
Yeah, if there's a way to have like a toned down version of that aspect, I think those exact lights would be a little bit bright on Monroe, being that it's all residential, but something similar to that, if it was scaled down a little bit, would be really inviting, make that a nice road.
It's a good point on the scaled down too. I think that's a good idea.
In the past too, we've already discussed and set a number of trees that were acceptable for park strips, and so I wouldn't see any need to change that unless there's a reason to.
Eric, Kai just came back in, so he probably didn't hear that you had told him that you were ready to have him ask that question.
Well, he snoozes, he loses. He's got to do it on his own now.
Read the minutes, Kai. Read the minutes.
Yeah. So Kai, we've just kind of discussed reiterating Monroe of really being kind of a tree-lined road with potentially some nice street lighting like Washington, but toned down a little bit. So it's not as bright for the residents along there, but adding that aspect to that, at least Monroe.
I'd say toned down quite a bit from Washington. That's a little way too bright, but
yeah. I'm thinking like the lantern light similar like that, but would be more the type that's about the size in people's front yards, and have those out on the park strip or something would be nice. But
yeah, well, something like that might encourage pedestrian traffic there as well, and something that kind of is a back door into some of the services, since Washington is always going to be a more traffic oriented, car oriented pathway.
Kai, was there another question that you wanted to address the commission with?
No, I think that feedback helps.
Okay. Is there anything else on this item as we've circled back? to item 6 from commissioners? We just want to make the minutes really difficult to do, so. All right, we will move on to item 8, Zone Text Amendment 2018-3. Discussion. Oh, I lost sorry, the discussion regarding amending city code to aid a sensitive land section. Rob, our planning director, Rob Scott.
Thank you, Chair, Commissioners, and audience. The Planning Commission has been working on this now for about a year. You've had a number of discussions, about 7 or 8, discussing this as we've gone through the various components of the ordinance. And the anticipation is that we would be ready to go to public hearing on this unless there are some things that you want us to further address. So I just want to, by way of summary, there's 3 parts to this ordinance. The first part is that we have a provision 11-25 that's called development constraints. That chapter is being modified, and then we are creating a new chapter that will address the sensitive lands overlay. So the development constraints, it's important for us to be able to retain the ability to make a requirement as these subdivisions come in to do specific studies that are contained in 1125. Those have to do with the physical sciences, geology, hydrology, and those kinds of things. But then when we go to the sensitive lands, then we have a more specific, clear and objective standard as it relates to the types of studies and the standards for design that are contained therein. In addition to that, we're moving towards having all of our definitions moved into chapter 2, which is our definitions chapter. So if someone's looking for a definition, they won't have to look throughout the code. It'll be in one chapter within Title 11. And so that's the kind of a brief overview. So I guess I've given you a summary of every one of the sections. And if you want me to go through those briefly, I can do that, or I can answer questions about them at your disposal.
Okay, just on the items that you've got highlighted there, or is that?
That's the summary, but if there's any aspect of the ordinance that the commissioners would like to discuss, the anticipation is that we would recommend that we work towards the second meeting in March for the actual public hearing for this ordinance.
Okay. Is there any other questions on this ordinance, commissioners, or discussion that you've?
I'm going to take just a second, skim through it. Give me 30 seconds.
We've tried to, as we discussed this on multiple occasions, you've given us direction. Staff has incorporated that direction into the ordinance.
I thought it looked pretty good so far.
Yeah, I agree with that. I've read through it.
Yeah, I don't see anything that causes me any concern or deviates from anything we've talked about in previous meetings.
So, commissioners, if you're satisfied with it, that certainly does not preclude you from, when we get into hearing, if somebody decides that or discovers something that we need to further address, we'll still have time to accomplish that.
Okay. Yeah, I think we're kind of far enough along. We could probably take that next step.
There's a considerable amount of land that is going to be included within this overlay. So Lynn is going to have a monumental task to send out notices. So that's why we decided that we better suggest the March 17th date rather than push it to the 3rd.
I wonder if we could, I wonder what kind of education we could do to maybe a question answer thing, if that's going to be it. I mean, are you talking hundreds of homes will be notified? because I think there's generally just something shocking when you get a notification that says, hey, the property next to you is up for, some decision. I think your mind immediately goes to the worst. That's been my experience with the people who've shown up to the meetings. I wonder if we could some way maybe put this on the Facebook page or something and let some questions get out there. I wonder if that would be helpful, just to save the and I want to say public clamor, I guess, in the meeting. Because
So
I think this is a very positive thing for the city, but I think
Sure.
the initial notification comes out as a, oh my gosh, what's happening? What are they up to now? Kind of.
So you make a valid point. Lynn and I have both actually chatted about this as to having and hopefully a clear and concise notice that will hopefully address most of those questions ahead of time. And if not, that's what we do, is we answer questions.
True.
So
I know that every time we've sent out notifications about the parks and we've discussed the park rezones, then I've had people call me and saying like, oh, I heard they're putting homes in the parks now, right? I mean, there's just the misinformation. Just so
Yeah,
good luck.
I think if the notice could have, like what you've talked about, Rob, is just a brief summary of what the sensitive overlay is. That gives, when people are noticed, then at least there's a few summary items and saying, for more in depth, please look at, and have a link on there or whatever to the website, but so they can read it, but at least a few summary items so they can understand, hey, this is to, protect our sensitive lands on the hillsides and ensure that we have proper, we're taking care of it properly through the future. So I think people understand that, then that's the first thing, rather than just, hey, this land is up for a rezone or a public decision, and then it's up to them to find from there. If there's some brief summary in that notice, I think that would be helpful.
thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate the suggestion. I think they're very good.
Okay. Does that take us that takes us through our agenda tonight. Remarks from planning commissioners. I know one item, the mayor had asked that somebody from the planning help be on the interview committee for our new planning director. The mayor has asked that I take that position. If anybody objects to that, I'm happy to not do that, but otherwise I've been asked to be on the interview committee for the new public director, or the new planning director. Is any commissioners have comments or objections to that?
Nope, it's all yours.
I think you're the best candidate.
I've been on those interview things before, and they're not fun.
What if I'm an applicant? Then can I just
Hey, well, then we're gonna have to give you back your $500.
yeah, see?
You're going to have to get fired first.
Yeah. Go take a job that has a little more pay and a lot more public upsetting the public.
I gotta tell you, Thomas, the pay, you better investigate that versus your current employment. Just want to give you a heads up.
Well, yeah. At the same time I saw that application, I had an application request come across my desk of a planning director for the church. So, hey, retirement is coming, I guess, right? All right. Any other remarks from commissioners? Everybody shoveled out their neighbor's driveway for them and you're just too tired to comment, or what?
I just think it's going to be big shoes to fill when Rob retires. So Rob, you've taught me a lot. I didn't get a chance to mention this last meeting, but I've learned a ton from you, and I appreciate how well you've interacted with us. I know it's a little early for goodbyes here, but I just wanted you to know that.
Well, I don't have a tissue out quite yet.
Don't do that yet.
You're not going to have a tissue, Rob. This is the 5th time you've done this.
Just 4.
Oh, okay. Well, Rob, I guess no remarks from commissioners. Rob, do you have anything for us?
Just a couple of quick things. I noticed that in the Utah chapter APA, that the spring conference, they initially said they were going to have a certain number of people be allowed to go to the conference in person. It's all going to be virtual now. So just be aware of that. And again, if you're interested in any of those topics, both the spring conference and the national conference will make some arrangements with respect to the registration for that. And
Rob, do you know, are they offering those ad hoc? I mean, do you need to register for the entire conference? If there was something like maybe just one thing in there that we wanted to watch, do you need to buy a whole 2-day conference to that? Or like, I know some of them that you can just piecemeal it, right? Like you get a couple hours.
Right.
Do you know if there's that?
My anticipation would be that if we have some interest, that we would just register for it, and then people would have access to it, probably come down to the city offices, and we just let everybody be in the same room and excuse me. So we wouldn't have multiple registrations.
Rob, I'm sorry. Has an email been sent out on those classes? What's being offered?
The agendas haven't been forthcoming yet.
Okay.
So the second thing is that I'm going to be working on our annual report. And one of the things that we do each time is we have pictures of staff and the planning commission. In the past, we've had a group picture with COVID and what have you. And I don't think we all want to be together in masks. So Linda's going to be making arrangements to have individual pictures. It sounds like that'll be the best. Excuse me. That's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you. And John is not with us tonight. Mayor, do you have any other comments or remarks for us?
No, other than this, once again, thank you guys for your service, ladies and gentlemen. We know it's not easy being a public servant, so just always know we're appreciative of the work you put in, and we're always here to support you if you need any help. So that's all I have to say.
All right, thank you. Well, commissioners, Commissioner Webb, you made it through your first meeting. You know what? They're not a breakneck speed, but we keep them moving. So
Nice.
Brandon just chatted, go Jazz. See, we got done just in time for him to watch the Jazz game. So, all right, motion for adjournment.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for adjournment. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, meeting is dismissed. Thank you, everybody.
Have a good couple of weeks.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.